This is a prize for geology. Mantell's work is more strictly paleontology.
Rather a narrow view, Owen.
I think we should err on the side of caution in these matters.
Mantell has done a lot of good work. He's named 6 dinosaurs.
Mantell is a very distinguished collector, like my friend Holmes down in Horsham and Dixon in Worthing. They lay out their own money and time to assemble specimens for professional men of science to interpret. Very worthy, but we do not give them medals for it.
There was nothing more I felt I could say. Owen is, after all,
the English Cuvier.
I thought you ought to know, in strictest confidence.
What a pity that a man of so much talent and acquirement should be so dastardly and envious.
Mantell wrote to the Royal Society, enclosing his paper on the iguanodon, requesting that it be reconsidered for the Royal Medal. This time, his close friend and collaborator Charles Lyell was there to help.
This is quite improper. The Geology Committee has recommended Professor Forbes.
It is for this council to make the final decision.
Well, it should not be Mantell. All he does is collect fossils and gets others to work them out.
Dr. Buckland, who is indisposed, has written to me on Mantell's behalf. He says any of Mantell's 3 recent papers are worthy of the highest honor the Society can give.
The Dean of Westminster has been thoroughly absorbed in his ecclesiastical duties for some years now. He is no longer at the forefront of geology. And as you say, he is indisposed. Or to speak plainly, showing symptoms of dementia.
Well, I could quote copious favorable references to Mantell from your own work, Professor Owen.
Mr. Mantell, the council requests your presence.
I cared not for the distinction of a medal, for I felt the hour was not far distant in which whatever praise or censure I had acquired would count for nothing in the next world. But not to have made a stand against this malevolent man would have been more than I could bear.
Dr. Mantell, the council has considered your submission and proposes to award you the Royal Medal for Geology for your work on the iguanodon.
Well done. Well done indeed, Egg. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done, man. Thank you. Good man, Mantell.
Thank you.
Only 2 members voted against me. Owen was one of them. Dr. Buckland's illness has worsened. The best medical opinions have been consulted in vain. Nothing relieves the apathetic gloom and depression which have settled down upon this gifted man.
The failure of his life's dream to reconcile his love of God with his passion for science was taking its toll on Buckland.
God's head.
The waters bring forth abundant.
His mental illness was now acute.
Marine creatures that
His younger children were amused by his outbursts, thinking that their usually cheerful papa was joking with them. But to the older children and to his wife, the truth was appallingly clear. William Buckland was going mad.
Come on, sir. I will not be sinned against. I will not be sinned against. I will not be sinned against. The Lord is my Redeemer. God is my Redeemer. God is my Redeemer. I shall want my life.
Buckland's distraught family sought Professor Owen's opinion. He advised the doctor's removal to an asylum.
Can we agree the minutes of the last meeting?
I note that in my absence, Council approved a request from Professor Owen to reproduce certain illustrations from our journal.
Well, the Professor is preparing a book on the fossil reptiles.
We all look forward to its appearance. However, it is customary for those whose illustrations are reproduced to be asked for permission.
But they're Owen's from his papers.
They are not. Professor Owen proposes to reproduce several of mine, including the celebrated jaw of the iguanodon.
Professor?
When I said they were illustrations of my specimens, I meant, of course, they were plates described by me in my 1842 report.
I think Professor Owen's memory fails him. Some of the fossils in question were not discovered until after that date.
Yes. Well, it seems I must apologize to the Council and to Dr. Mantell for my inadvertent role in what has clearly been an unfortunate misunderstanding.
Owen had, at last, been exposed in his duplicity, and every member of the Council had witnessed it. Countless ages before man was created, I visited these regions of the earth and beheld a beautiful country of vast extent, groves of palms and ferns, and forests of coniferous trees clothed its surface. And I saw monsters of the reptile tribe, so huge that nothing among the existing races can compare with them.
Mantell was now taking opiates at 32 times the maximum dose. More than 40 years of passionate inquiry, of hopes raised and dashed, of triumphs and struggles were over. His instructions after his death were that a post-mortem was to be carried out, and any relevant parts of pathological interest should be given to the Hunterian Museum. The post-mortem revealed that his lower spine was twisted almost at right angles. It was given into the care of Richard Owen. Shortly afterwards, an anonymous obituary appeared in the Literary Gazette, dismissing Mantell as an inadequate scientist and emphasizing his weaknesses. It was obvious who was behind the anonymous obituary, and Richard Owen received a formal reprimand from his peers for his ungracious attack on Mantell's memory. Mantell was buried in Norwood Cemetery, next to his beloved daughter Hannah. In accordance with his will, his funeral was a plain affair and no mourners were invited. Within a month, all of Mantell's specimens and personal effects were auctioned. Everything he had struggled so hard to acquire in his life was sold off to the highest bidder. William Buckland spent the last 4 years of his life in an asylum at Clapham. He died in 1856 at the age of 70. Three years later, Charles Darwin's Origin of Species was published, and with it, Richard Owen's downfall began. His own nemesis now appeared, in the shape of Darwin's so-called bulldog, the scientist Thomas Huxley. Huxley was a brilliant anatomist who saw Owen as a vain,